I'm not against it. You know what I mean? I mean, I like live. It's where I live. To be honest with you, we do everything as live. We are live. Are live. You know, what's your favorite form of? We are in Liverpool.
Yeah,
What's your favorite form of live?
going. I liked.
It was brilliant. One of the best ones.
Yeah, going live. That was good. Yeah. I mean, it is funny, isn't it? Like the whole like live thing. Like
Live.
it's not as if we're doing a lot of takes
No.
in the pre-records.
No, absolutely. I mean, they can tell. I'd say they can tell. This is not totally football. 500 edits. I couldn't believe it when they said that publicly. He does 500 edits a show. That fella, he said.
I don't think we've done 500 in the history of the Anfield Wrap. No, we've got Rob Gutman.
Yeah. The only time we do anywhere near 500 edits is when my partner Brocklehurst and Ben Johnson go to Glastonbury. That's the only time edits get anywhere near that number.
Correction. When Kev's on AFQ.
When Kev's on AFQ, there you are. That's where you might get.
It's
your
only
edits.
one a week, though.
Yeah, that's fine. We've got Paul Cope and Mike Bankole, two men who do not need editing and don't even try. They'll be round to yours to drop your hat, break your fingers off the back of any editing. They're live as well. Everyone is live. This is our season review show, although coming up we've got Tony Barrett and Ian Byrne for you to talk about obviously what went on in Paris. That is continuing, it is rumbling. We'll do a bit of an update in a little while on that, but we're going to start off just talking about the season, because that's what we're meant to do with these shows immediately after the season, is review the season. And everyone gets their own opportunity, everyone gets their own time to do so, to work this stuff out. And you know, I will do the first one here. So we've got John and we've got Mike and we've got Paul, and they're working it all through. We'll start off with Mike's season review. Mike, I'm sure you've heard them before on the Anfield Wrap. You can take it wherever you want. You can talk about whatever you want. The only thing that's a little bit different is you can see the comments, which normally people can't see. But what is your outlook on? Go on.
Live heckling.
Yeah, get off his back. Get off his back. It is a wonderful bookcase. Mike Bankole, what is your review of the season?
Yeah, so I think to review the season, I have to go right back to the very start of it, right, and think about the mood going into the season. And I remember feeling really optimistic, but there had been a lot of noise around Liverpool. Liverpool fans feeling less optimistic than I was. I remember we didn't make the transfers that some expected us to make off the back of the season we had with the injuries and everything else. And a lot of Liverpool fans I felt were beaten before balls kicked and didn't have the optimism that I wanted them to have going into the season. You look back on the predictions that BBC made, and a lot of them didn't put Liverpool in the top two. A lot of our fans probably, I mean, not a lot of them, but a few of our fans, maybe some on the internet, might not have put us in the top two either. So it's easy to do the hindsight thing of, look at the BBC. But actually, I feel like the mood around the start of the season was a bit weird. I felt like going into the season, we were going to be given a chance to dream. I feel like when you look at Liverpool's season since Jurgen Klopp's come in, even the season he comes in right at the very start, we've always had a chance to dream. And that season, the dream was Europa League, which is a smaller dream than the dreams we have now, but it was the Europa League. The season after that, the dream is the top four and to return to Champions League. And after that, it's the Champions League itself. So we always go on a journey. I think the only time we haven't been on a journey was that weird season we had where literally all of us have forgotten parts of what happened that season. You know, when Sky do that thing where they try and like remind you of a game that happened last season, they were doing that this season. I was like, forgotten half of the games that happened in the 2021 season. So I was feeling optimistic, and ultimately I feel like we've been on probably the best adventure of our lives this season. Like, no club has come close to a quadruple than we did, and that's something that's worth remembering. And in some ways, look, seasons are defined by how they end. Listen, there are champions, there's teams that get relegated, there are teams that finish in top four and teams that don't. But our season, I don't think, can be defined by those last two games where ultimately we fall short of the two major honours. Our season has to be defined by the journey we went on. And I think that journey is really, really important, because the season before that, we were all at home. We didn't get to go to the ground. We didn't get to go to games. We didn't have that community. We didn't even get to go to pubs at times to watch games with our friends, with our family. That's, you know, football for me is a community event. It is something you do with your friends, you do with your family, your loved ones, the people you care about. And we were robbed of that last season. We didn't have that. And I feel like this season, one of the legacies of this season will be we came together, and there was this, and I spoke a lot about Liverpool fans who weren't optimistic. We all bought into this journey. We all were on this journey together with the club. And I feel like one of the legacies of Klopp's time at this club will be the fact that the fans have really come together. We've become one. And I feel like as the season's gone on, we've been on an amazing journey. The first half of the season, I feel like, and Neil's spoken about it a lot, we were involved in too many classics. And that was ultimately our kind of our downfall in the first half of the season. So I'm thinking of the Brentford game. I'm thinking of the Man City game where we were 2-1 up and probably should see it over the line, but then they score late. And I think there's a few other games where we just didn't really looked like we had the consistency maybe to be champions. We've kept them falling up short. I think there's West Ham game as well where we lose 3-2 at the Olympic Stadium. So I think the first half of the season defined by some really, really eye-catching performances. You look at Man United, you look at the Everton game at Goodison Park, but also some games that maybe you felt they might not quite have it in them to become champions. I remember in December, a lot of us threw the towel in. After the Leicester game, that was it. You know, we thought, listen, the league's gone here. We'd lost to Leicester. And it was a Leicester side that, looking back, and even at the time, we never should have lost that game. You know, we had the chances to kill the game off. Leicester had huge injuries going into the game. They'd just been beaten by City 6-2, 6-3 at the Etihad. We all fancied our chances of winning that game, and we didn't win that game. So to look at the run we went on in the second half of the season, in the concept of competing in the League Cup, in competing in the FA Cup, competing in Champions League, it's one of the all-time great runs in English football. We drop points in games that, okay, listen, we can look at our big game record and scrutinise that record. We drop points in games to Tottenham and Man City and Chelsea. But it was an incredible run. We were in 3 cup competitions at the time we got on the run. Our defence tightens up from January onwards, and we look like a really kind of formidable defensive unit. We're not conceding goals. We're not involved in any classics anymore. There are very few classics from January onwards. It is very much Liverpool winning games. So it's just been a remarkable run. And I look back on it with pride. And look, it didn't end the way we wanted it to. And I'm at peace with the league. I feel partly because to get it from where it was the last 15 minutes of the season, right? After it being a 14-point gap, that is remarkable. That is genuinely remarkable. We were fingertips away from winning the league title. It's a genuinely remarkable achievement. The Champions League one is the one that stings a bit, just because going into that season, I was going into the final, I was so confident, and obviously the stuff around the final and everything else, but I just felt that we were better than Madrid going into this final. You know, 17-18, we weren't the better side going to that final. We'd been on an amazing journey. We'd beaten City, we'd beaten Roma, we'd beaten Porto, but we weren't the better side going into that final. We were the better side going into the final in just the final just gone, and it kind of stings a bit that we weren't able to get that one over the line. So that is a bit of a disappointment, but ultimately, look, Liverpool taking us on an amazing journey, and the highlight for me would be the FA Cup, the last 2 FA Cup games, just because our end in both games, I was fortunate enough to be at both games, was genuinely remarkable. Like, City game at half time was like the biggest party you'd ever had in your life. It literally was just like, we were singing the Jurgen Klopp song, we were all going crazy. And the let-off after Costa scores a penalty in the Chelsea game, it was like an out-of-body experience. And like, I never thought I'd feel like that with the FA Cup. Like, I grew up loving the FA Cup, and you kind of fall out of love with it because it's not taken that seriously and stuff. But I went crazy. I lost my mind after Costa scored a penalty. So we've had some amazing moments this season. And I think the way the season ended, it didn't end on a note of we lost Champions League final. I think that's really, really important. And you spoke about that, John. It's important that we had that parade, because now we can look into next season and say, okay, listen, we've had a bit of a disappointment towards the back end of the season just gone, but we ended on a high. We've seen these lads off. We thank them for the season they've given us, and we go again next season.
Okay, excellent stuff, Mike. I especially enjoyed it when you took the cowards on early. That was the real high point for me. I'm very into taking the cowards on early, and we can all plan to do that for the start of next season as well. I'm very much the cowards amongst our own ranks. I've got no interest really now in the. You know, we've won the battle with BBC punditry. We've had them off. We didn't even have to send Dan Austin in for that one. That one's boxed. All looked after. The cowards in our end. Just on the togetherness point, Mike, you make it a couple of times in there as well. It seemed to me as though that's why the parade ended up being really important. I know a lot of people couldn't make it up for the parade, but it seemed like one last go. And why I think it'll be important for the players as well. You know, it seemed that they were a bit overwhelmed by it, but it was like, you know, this is what it's been all the way through. I reckon Costas himself might be up for one every Tuesday if we can sort that out. But it feels to me like that's the important part, isn't it? The idea of telling them that story as well, of the togetherness all the way through.
Yeah, I think it's a defining kind of theme of our season. It's like there have been times where we've had to lift the lads up, I feel. Like after the Tottenham game, I remember the lads looked like they were just gutted. They'd given everything. Obviously, we'd win the game, and we knew how decisive that game was in terms of a title race. But I think a lot of people in the ground were just like, no, this is okay. Listen, it happens. You've been on an amazing run. We'll go again. And I think that togetherness is really, really important. I think Jurgen Klopp is someone who's really good at weaponizing this cyclical nature of football. The fact that we can go again, the fact that there's always next season. And that togetherness is really important for doing that. We come together, we understand where the season was, we understand the effort you guys put in, we lift each other up. There are times when the players have had to lift us up, and they've had to give us a bit, and we've had to give them back. So that relationship we have with this group is really, really important. And I think going into next season, the fact that we ended with that parade, the fact we ended with thanking the players, and some of them have literally come out and said it was one of the best days of their lives. That's after losing the biggest game in club football, by the way. So that tells you everything you need to know about togetherness at this club, and that tells you everything you need to know about what's going to happen next season, because we're going to ride this wave of togetherness, and it's something that's going to define Jurgen Klopp's legacy at this club.
Okay, John, you got anything for Mike?
Just on the togetherness point, really, and I think it's crucial, and I think Klopp deserves a lot of credit for it, but it's throughout the club, really. And listen, later in this show, if you're listening as a podcast, Tony Barrett's going to come on, and the fact that it's a club employee coming on to talk to us. I don't know whose idea it was. It just sort of found out it was happening. But that doesn't really matter. Do you know what I mean? The point is that someone's coming in, talking to us, well, through us to the supporters thing. And Tony makes a point, not to give too much away, about the fact that because communication and togetherness and everything is so good, we're almost ready when stuff like this happens, and stuff like what happens in Paris. And I think that is huge, really. And I've seen Tony gets a bit of flack in certain circles, and maybe I get a bit prickly on it because I really like him, but people are saying, oh, what's he doing? What he's been doing is this. It's building up to when something like this happens, everyone's like, right, let's go. And we don't need to worry about who do we need to speak to at the club.
Yeah.
Because we've got the phone numbers, and they don't need to worry about who gets the fan message out, because the relationships are all sorted there, really. And so I think there's a lot of people in Liverpool Football Club and outside who deserve a lot of credit for this sort of togetherness, really, because togetherness comes through in two ways. It comes through when you're winning, and it comes through in celebrations like Sunday, but also when it really matters is in adversity, and we've had both of those things over this season, really. We've had highs, we've had wins, we've had trophies, we've had parades, but we've had Saturday night, which was disgusting in terms of how we were treated, and I think that togetherness we're seeing a lot of now. We're seeing our CEO go on I don't know what he's got. What's he going on?
Our website, yeah.
He's going on every night and talking through and saying, and there was never a concern for me that the club wouldn't stand with us on this, or would just ignore it, or would just go, oh yeah, it looks a bit shit, but we don't really want to battle everything with UEFA. I always sort of knew that this would happen, really, and I knew the players would speak out like that they have, and I knew SOS are having a meeting on Saturday, and it's a bit slow. SOS have had a bit of stick as well, but it's just slower for unions. They can't act as quickly as Dan Austin, who just represents himself. Do you know what I mean? And that's not to go anything away from Dan. He's been brilliant, but I think it is a bit harder. But they're having a meeting on Saturday. They'll have a plan forward, and it'll be the right thing for the members of Spirits of Shankly. And so I don't know. This is a bit long winded, Mike. I'm sorry, but I guess what I'm saying is that lots of people and lots of organisations and lots of things have pulled together to mean that it's better when we win. We're more likely to win because we all feel like we're this force, but when something sort of does go wrong, that we're there. And so I feel like the way that Barcelona felt the full force of Liverpool Football Club 2 years ago, now UEFA are going to get it as well, just in a bit of a different way.
Excellent. Paul, you got anything for Mike?
The only thing to ask a question, actually, this might be hijacking later on the show, I don't know, but it's live, so there's nothing you can do about it.
Hijack away.
Is I think it's a great point about going into the season and the feeling of fans in different parts. And it's even funny watching the comments coming through. And I steer clear of social media most of the time. And the past couple of weeks, I've just got back involved because everything that was going on. And I'm just interested in hearing what Mike thinks going into next season now, because it's funny seeing some people, or even with how well we've just done, there is some people who are still doing the going into next season. We won't win anything because City have bought Haaland, and we'll never beat them. And I'm literally sitting watching comments coming through, going, "Well, we beat them a couple of seasons ago to a league, and we literally won the Champions League the year before that." So I'm just intrigued in hearing where Mike thinks for next season.
Yeah, the Haaland thing's interesting because people are already thinking, listen, it's done. They've got Haaland. Even pundits are giving it the whole listen. They've got Haaland, it's done, guys. Forget about it. They're going to win a quadruple. That's sort of chat. City scored 99 goals last season. Goals were not a problem for Manchester City last season. Let's be absolutely clear. They got to the semi-final of the Champions League. They got to the semi-final of the FA Cup, and they got 93 points in the league. They are already competing at an extraordinarily high level. But guess what? So are we. And I think there are ways we can make marginal gains without even making signings. There are things we can improve in games. If you look at our big game record, we drew 6 of those games against Tottenham and Chelsea and City. Those are marginal gains we can make. There are ways in which we can improve some players' performances over the course of the season. I think Mo needs rest. Mo's season was a season of 2 halves. And I think one of the reasons Mo has a season of 2 halves is because he plays too much football. I would personally like to see some backup for Mo Salah on the right-hand side so he has less pressure in terms of having to play every single minute. So there are ways in which we can improve and become a better side. I don't buy into this reality where City are going to run away with the league. They got Haaland. They're going to win every single trophy because they're already competing at a high level. City will continue to be a high-level team as long as Pep Guardiola is at the helm. We have to be at peace with that. They've raised the bar. That's fine, but we can compete with them, and we've shown that, and we're going to show that again next season.
That is indeed the spirit. I've just done, by the way, one of our subscriber shows and In Their Shoes where I go into City and I had to do City and talk about what City's summer could look like. I've actually got a bit more work to do than you'd think in a really weird way. Gundogan's moving on, Fernandinho's moving on. They need to pick between Mahrez and Sterling, realistically. They probably need a left-back plan. They always need a left-back plan. Zinchenko's knocking around there. There's talk that they might end up having to accept a deal for Ake. There's a lot of little bits to do. But also by buying Haaland and Alvarez, they're very much committed to playing a number 9 every single game. They can't really not do that. It's not just Haaland, it's also Alvarez. They bought a backup striker as well for Haaland, who fancies himself as being able to grab the slot. It's just really interesting. But they will still almost certainly break 90 points, make the semi-finals of the Champions League, and win one of the domestic cups, because guess what? They're brilliant. But so are we, and that is the spirit. John, your season review.
Yeah, I was going to start with the BBC thing as well, but it's sort of slightly different angle in that I think, first of all, it's worth remembering, well, worth knowing, I guess, if you don't, like, just how like little thought can go into these things, and I say that from experience. So normally, what happens is someone in our organisation, it's Neil, will send you an email saying, "I need you to predict the top 4," and then 2 people will go back, and the rest of us will go, "Yeah, I need to do that," and then forget about it. And then basically 5 minutes before it's due, Neil will send me a message saying, "I need your top 4," and I'll go, "Shit," and then I'll type 4 names out. And I would imagine that's pretty much what's happened within the BBC as well. So we got to caveat it with that. but also, like they've not had a big full day summit on it. Do you know what I mean? Like it'll be something like that. But also, what I would say is, I think I would when I see that come up, and listen, it's fun to do the we've had them off type thing, and I did a bit of it last night on wild cards, and so it is fun, and I understand the temptation to go, oh look what they know, but I think it's better to look at it a different way and more right to look at it a different way, and it just shows the gravitas of our achievement, really, that it wasn't this foregone conclusion. And I think it puts into perspective when people say our Liverpool season is ultimately a disappointment. If it's those same people who they prediction, you can't have it both ways. You can't say Liverpool season is a disappointment when you were predicting us to come 4th and probably not get to a Champions League final on the basis that there's 3 English clubs at least that you think were better than us. And so I think, it's one way or the other for me. It's the season sort of ultimately a disappointment because you only win 2 domestic cups and finish second, breaking 90 points. Or you have to say that Liverpool have massively overachieved based on what people thought. And I can sort of understand as well where these people who are a bit on the outside were coming from, because I kind of felt at the start of the season you could throw a blanket over us, City and Chelsea. And in the end, that proved to be incorrect because Chelsea weren't quite at that level, really. But Tuchel talks about us being further along on our journey, and I think that's a reasonable point. To me, managers always say that they just want more time, but I think it's a reasonable thing to say. But also, Manchester United finished second last season. They finished above us in the league, albeit with everything going on. And then they bought Jadon Sancho, who everyone at Liverpool was desperate for. And then Varane looked a really good signing, and probably was still quite a good signing.
I forgot he was there.
Yeah. But last summer when they got Varane, everyone was like, "Fucking hell," do you know what I mean? And this was before they'd even got Ronaldo, because Ronaldo comes in late, and so you could sort of understand why there was a little bit of a hype around United, from a point of view of what they'd had a much better season, and then suddenly they got Jadon Sancho in, who was just this big superstar that had been coveted by everyone, and they'd got him. City will always be, as you say, Mike's just said it there. We know what they're gonna do next season already, so they're there. And Chelsea just won the European Cup, and so they're in. I sort of understand where people are coming from. Really, we had more question marks. We didn't know what Virgil was going to be like. There was people saying to me who know this sort of things, don't expect anything decent out of Virgil till December. Liverpool might be getting him on the pitch, but it's going to take a long, long time. Joe Gomez had the big injury, Joe Matip, and then we signed this French young lad, and he was our only buy, by the way. There were still question marks over Thiago. Mane had a really poor season. Firmino, was starting to look sort of on his way out, I think. So there was a lot of question marks around Liverpool. So I understand why it was maybe seen as a safer bet to say City first, Chelsea second. I get that. But that just shows, I think, that's the basis of and the idea behind me saying how much we've overachieved this season, how we should look at how people were perceiving us last summer in the kind of viewpoint of, but haven't we done amazingly? And also what I would say is that this is why I feel feel really good about next season, is that I always felt we would get stronger as the season went on. So my hope was, if Liverpool were going to win a title, we'd be in touching distance in January, and if we were, just watch us go. And I'm pretty sure there's podcasts of me saying that, because everything that me and Neil says is recorded, and so I'm pretty sure there will be podcasts of me saying that. So I always felt we'd find it not hard, but it was like it's gonna be a while till we find our rhythm. It's gonna be a while till everyone's backfiring. The guys who've been on long-term injuries, it's gonna sort of take a while, really. And then in the end, when it got to January, we were 14 points, albeit with 2 games played less, and you just thought we've just left ourselves with a little bit much to do here. And that was sort of true, but by the tiniest margins. I think if the season was 3 or 4 games longer, I think we'll win the league, because I think we were coming up stronger. And the finishing post, and you've seen it in a horse race or in an athletics race or something, where one's just catching the other one, they're just catching them, and then the finishing post just comes a little bit too soon for the one chasing, and that's what I felt what happened in the league. And as I say, I always felt we finished stronger, and so for me, I'm really positive going into next season, because I think they've done so well based on where we were last summer in terms of uncertainty, in terms of people who've been out for a long time, in terms of the fact that we didn't have this, this summer where loads of players were sort of coming in. Really, it was a bit of a disjointed sort of pre-season as well for sort of a lot of players, really. I think Mo having the summer off, was massive in terms of how he started that season. But I think this summer, is a really big one for Liverpool in terms of, retaining, in terms of, okay, well, if someone like Sadio Mane is to leave, making sure we can replace him. So we have got a big summer, but I think if they can get it right, and they proved that they can, I think we can have a really, really strong season next season. I'm dead excited about a pre-season for Diaz, because he's basically just been told to go out and play football so far. And so I think him doing the mad training where there's 7 balls on the pitch and no one really knows what's going on, but they do. And me and Neil are watching it in Singapore, sweating all go, I'm asking you what's going on. You're like, no idea, mate. There's 7 balls on the pitch, but they seem to know what they're doing. A summer of that, I think will be really, really good for this team. And just to finish, what I really, really liked about this season is that it's the biggest season for me of whoever's been on the pitch us looking like a Liverpool team.
Yeah.
And there's been 2 or 3 games where, that hasn't been the case, and where we sort of played poorly. But generally speaking, it's been, we've used so many footballers this season. It is unbelievable. You made the point a couple of weeks ago, Neil, that Kay Gordon started away at Arsenal in the League Cup semi-final. You've got Tyler Morton playing, big Premier League games. So many players coming in and out, but we always look like Liverpool. And so I think, a couple of big names might go this summer, and one of them already is with Divock Origi, and that's going to be sad because we've got the emotional attachment, but it doesn't worry me, because we're like a machine at the moment, and people come in and out, but the people who come in will understand it straight away because it's run so well and it's going so well. So yeah, I know what exactly I need to do. They're not coming into a mess and trying to find themselves, and so it's a fantastic football club to come into, and that's I think that's why so many of our signings have hit the ground running. It's credit to them, of course, but they come in and go, yeah, I get it straight away. I know what I'm supposed to do, and so I'm really positive about next year based on how we've second half of this season. About the fact that there's a few players who fell away, the likes of Jota, who'll be right back at it come August. And yeah, it's going to be an exciting year next year, I think. And we're not falling away just yet.
Okay. Mike, any questions for John?
Yeah, I had a question because you touched on and it is a really good point about the idea that there was a lot of uncertainty going into the season. Is there anything that surprised you from a player point of view in terms of players' performances, maybe a player recapturing form? Is there anything that surprised you from that point of view?
I think if I focus on the centre halves, I think the number of games we got out of Joel Matip is a huge credit to everyone, including him. And yeah, he ends the season sort of on the bench, but he was vital for us so many times this season. So I think I was expecting, more of the defenders to have a season like Joe Gomez, where they go in and they sort of don't look quite right, really. Joe Gomez has had a bit of criticism this season. He's more like what should have happened. Do you know what I mean, in terms of this long-term injury? And yeah, he hasn't had the gift of so many games, which kind of adds to it, really. But I think Matip has been a really pleasant surprise. And then also Konate, how he's done in these big games. Yeah, he's got the odd mistake in him, which we've seen. But I think for those two, I think as a pair, and they almost come as a pair, really, don't they, in a funny sort of way, even though they haven't played that many games together. I think the level we've got from them too has far exceeded, I think, what we kind of reasonably expected for this season. In particular, Konate's got a huge future. He's going to be a massive player for Liverpool. Joel Matip, we know, is class, but from what we've got out of them over the last 12 months, I think they're the biggest, positive kind of surprises for me.
Okay, Paul?
The only thing that popped up as you were talking about going into the season again was a slightly different question on. Probably two questions in one. Do you think we should have done more in the transfer market last season? And secondly, do you think the club regret not doing any more?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, mate, because I think, I'm always willing to sort of take the club side on transfers a little bit more than, say, some others are. And I don't think that's necessarily, I think that's just my personality rather than anything else. Like, if someone does something, and I think you'll understand what I'm saying here, Paul, if someone does something, I'll always try and understand, well, what are their reasons for doing it? Rather than just me saying, that's ridiculous, do you know what I mean? Just sign Mbappe. I was like, well, why aren't they? Do you know what I mean? It's like the Salah thing, the contract thing with Salah and Mane. I'm always someone who will try and understand, well, why is this football club not doing this thing that maybe sort of seems obvious to everyone else? So with signings, I'll always think, well, I get it. You've got to keep people happy. Money's not limited. The problem with that is when they just sign someone like Diaz and his fucking boss, it sort of ruins that a bit. Like Bob Gutman's continual 10-year argument, and it's probably been going longer, but that's how long I've known him.
I'm on 18.
Bob Gutman's continual 10-year argument of just buy another boss fast lad up front, buy more of them, and when you think you've got enough, buy another one. He's sort of been proved right, and that's annoying.
It's heartbreaking, some would say.
And so I think the idea of just fucking throw a boss lad in and we'll worry about what to do with it, when he comes. Apparently there's something in it, Paul.
There we are. Who knew there was something in it? Excellent stuff from John. We'll get Paul's in the next part of this if you are watching this live. That is obviously coming sooner. If you are watching it live, though, do take the time to listen to it as a podcast as well, because coming up right now, two excellent chats with Tony Barrett, first and foremost, from the club, coming to talk about his personal response and the club's response so far as well to what happened last Saturday, and Ian Byrne, Member of Parliament for West Derby. Pleasure for Ian to come in yesterday as well. Spoke to them both yesterday. Obviously, there's been developments since then. We'll come back. I'll mention them briefly, and then we'll get back on with this show. So we'll hand over now first to Tony, then to Ian, and then we'll be back with the rest of TAW Live. There you go, Andy. Stop moaning about the size of the gap I give you. We're back on TAW Live. It's Neil Atkinson with Mike Bankole and with Paul Coban, with John Gibbons. There has been... and
3 seconds, still too short.
That was long for me. Some of them have literally been a breath.
Yeah, 3 seconds indeed. 29:05 for those who are watching, taking notes on this sort of thing. Listen, there's a lot that's gone on, and there's other Anfield Wrap shows and other lives that we've done around it. Today, the Chief of Staff for the Sports Minister has resigned. He's only been in post a week, barely had time to work out where the photocopier is, but he's had a look around and decided this is not for him in France. Only just got his email address sorted out and everything. Maybe it was the first email he sent after Sean and IT boxed it for him. He's decided this is not for him and decides to go and get on with something else for a period of time. That is suggestive indeed of something that is not right at the heart of this French government around this affair. Further to that, Real Madrid have made a statement today which makes clear that their supporters were brought up in it as well, and they're demanding answers from UEFA and from the French authorities. As we speak right now, Dan Austin is in Paris doing various bits of media, including 90 minutes in a second language with a presentation with a journalist at Le Monde, which will be available in terms of social clips over the weekend and will be subtitled into English as and when that comes through. But just to say, the idea of doing a 90-minute presentation in a second language is just remarkable, and Dan deserves all the credit in the world for the way in which he's gone to take the arguments over there, albeit the fact that's the thing to remember is that the arguments over there is where, on the whole, people are of the view that we are all of, that what happened last Saturday was distinctly unfair to football supporters in general now, whether they're from Liverpool or from Madrid or even in the neutral section, that the issue is one of policing. The French are very much on board with what we're saying, and that is worth bearing in mind as we go through all of this. There will be more to come in a variety of different ways, in a variety of different media, and we won't be leaving it alone. John mentioned the Spirit of Shankly meeting on Saturday. Get yourself along if you're a member and feel as though you can help and contribute to that. The other thing that we're just going to do tonight, we're doing shows today because it is the Anfield Wrap, and we take any opportunity to do more shows. We grab it with both hands and see what happens next. So me and John are in now right the way through until it's 6 o'clock, John. Are we until 6? So show an hour until 6, and then we're going to be looking to go for a drink. We're going to go to Pogues. If anyone at all, but if anyone was caught up in what happened last week and just wants to sort of turn up and have a bit of a chat about anything, really, you know what I mean? We don't have to talk about this. We can talk about whatever you want, but we'll be in Pogues after 6 o'clock tonight. Let's say 6:30, because I've got to turn the computer off and send the files to Andy and, just tidy the place up a bit and all the obvious hits. Get up to Pogues.
I don't know. I reckon it might be abrupt, that last show, Neil. Now you're dangling the Pogues cannons.
I know.
14 minutes.
Yeah. Rattling all the way through. If people are looking for some like-minded stuff, will be up there. That is not the same as its substitute what's been put on Liverpool's website around genuine resource around mental health for children, especially on there as well, but also for adults. Do check that out on Liverpool's website. The club and the foundation are working in order to support mental health charities as well around that time. What we're saying is we'll just be around and about this evening in Liverpool City Centre if anyone does want to come along and go from there, to be quite honest with you. Okay, coming up then, next season review from the one and only Mr. Paul Cope.
Well, I was saying to the lads before, and I love doing these reviews every year, and I love going last because I get to listen to what they say, and I don't have to worry about remembering stuff then. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's what happened. Because as you know, anyone who's listened to this long enough, I don't remember past about 2 games ago. But I was having a little look before, and so just something to add, because I agree with everything the lads have been saying. And something to add, which I think I probably end up saying every year at this time, football seasons are really interesting things because they simultaneously seem to go like in the blink of an eye. And when you look back, lasted in eternity. And this is the stuff, when you look back at things like predictions and stuff like that, as you were talking, the number of things that were popping up in my mind of like, the United one's a brilliant one. Like it's like everybody has their mind wiped, like Men in Black style, at the end of a season about what was going on a year ago. Like even if you listen to Gary Neville, for example, on Sky, you'd think he wasn't sitting there a year ago, absolutely creaming himself that they just finished second. They were runners-up in a European competition, and they bought Sancho, Varane, and Ronaldo. Like even Antonio Conte a few weeks ago was referencing it, saying it's not that easy, lads. And he actually referenced that point. They finished second and bought. If you'd have gone back to any football fan back then, any pundit, and said, will United be better or worse by the end of this season, having signed those 3 players, every single one of us would have said they'll be better. And then you fast forward 6 months, and they're the worst Man United team you have seen in your lifetime. And we're old enough Maybe all of us old enough. I don't know. I'm definitely old enough.
Mike's disturbingly young, but we saw
I didn't want to bring you in with us old guys then, Mike,
Yeah.
without knowing. But like, we've watched Man United teams with Mark Robins in, and we're literally sitting here going, this is the worst one, like this is worse than Mark Robins' Man United team. That's crazy. So people forget this stuff really easily. And I think something else, I think the whole COVID and lockdown thing does tie into this, because we've all been in this weird time vortex for a couple of years now. And I never know how long ago things were anymore. Like I've started doing this thing in my head that as soon as I think how long ago something was, I add 2 years to it.
Same.
If I think something was 6 months ago, I go, it must be 2 years and 6 months, because it must have been 6 months before we all stayed inside our houses for 2 years. Because I literally wasn't allowed to go and see my cousin in France for 2 years. So it must have been before then when it's something like that. When you go back to the beginning of the season, it was off the back of, and I even have to check this in my own mind, the season before. And the season before was a shit show. We had no centre-backs. We lost 6 home games in the run. We had people like Gary Neville, again, to reference him again, saying it's the end of Liverpool's front three. Oh, no, it wasn't actually Neville, in fairness. It was Carragher.
He called us mentality midgets.
Yeah, it's the end of Liverpool's front three. At that point, he was even swerving the whole centre-back debate and getting going 2-footed on the 3 old fellas. They've gone, referencing all old front threes that have gone before. Those lads have gone. Liverpool have gone. It's all over. And I remember even Klopp was saying, we've learnt more from this season than we've learnt from any other season. We'll be back. And again, referencing Mike's thing about going into it with a different attitude, depending on what your mentality is. I remember thinking, you can't tell me that you had Virgil van Dijk, a fit Thiago, and Joel Matip into this team, and we're not better again. Like, why do we not go back to the way we were before? And I remember the start of the season, and again, this is easy for people to forget. We were talking on shows about it was taking us time to get back into being Liverpool, like to remember what it was like to play football with Virgil van Dijk as your centre-back. Because we'd had to adapt to end the season before, which was magnificent anyway, to get into the top 4. But it was like everybody had to remember again what it was like to be the phenomenal Liverpool. And that took us half a season. That's just the way it was. It took us half a season. For us to have done what we've done since then is off the charts. And it is for me, like, this football season is a great test if you're a Liverpool fan, for just testing what your attitude to life is generally. Because if you're finishing the season going, we only won 2 Poxy Cups, I'm sorry. Like, genuinely, I've said this before, you need to go out and make friends with fans of other football clubs. And I don't even just mean like Arsenal, but I'll include Arsenal in this. Spurs, I mean Sheffield United, Wigan, Preston, any of these clubs. Go and chat to their mates and tell them that you think your season has been poor because you only won 2 Poxy Cups, finished 1 point behind Man City in the league, and finished runners-up in the Champions League, and they will chase you out of town with books.
Quite rightly.
Quite rightly. Like, we are spoiled, and I will bang on about this forever. We are spoiled, and we need to keep coming back and checking in with how privileged we are to watch a football team like this. At the same time, it's okay to be disappointed my big thing is, I think it's okay to be disappointed with the Champions League thing, because we should have won that. Where we got to, as Mike was saying, we were the better team. We should have won. If we'd have turned up on the day, for me, anything in life, if you turn up and you're your best and someone else is better than you, hands up, fair play. But when you're leaving, you can see it in Salah's comments this week, I wish I could play that game again. And you're like, yeah, that doesn't sit comfortably. I'm going to jump around a bit. To go back to the league for a second before finishing on the Champions League ending, my big thing about the league was, if you'd have said to all of us at the start of the season, you're going to finish this league season on 92 points. I just checked before. We got 69 last year. That's a 23-point jump. That's crazy. If you'd have said to us all, you're going to get 92 points, would you take it? Everyone would have bitten your hands off. All the pundits would not have said we'd have got 92 points. At the same time, if you'd have said to me, you're going to get 92 points, I'd have said, that's going to be a really nice second place finish then. And I wouldn't have thought we'd have been as close to City as we ended up being, because we all know, and this comes to the last point I want to make about next season, we all know what it takes to beat Man City to the league, because we did it a couple of seasons ago. And to beat this Man City to the league, I've been wrapped up in this as well. The whole, if this Liverpool team had existed in any other time in history, we'd won multiple leagues. Well, I've settled into the fact now, we don't. We exist now. And our rival is Manchester City. And if we want to win the league, we have to be aiming for 100 points. And you can fall short by 1 point maybe. But the reality is 92 points. We'd have said going into the season that it won't be enough to win the league. Like, it just won't be enough. The big thing about that is, and about finishing runners up in the Champions League, you can already see again. I keep thinking about this. I think we're in a mini cycle. Football goes in large cycles, which it's interesting seeing. Manchester United's manager is already hanging his hat on. Like, when he's asked about what he'll do, he's sort of already going, if I hang around long enough, their cycle will end. Like, I just need to hang on long enough for Pep to leave, Klopp to get off. And if I can do a good enough job in the meantime, we'll be well placed to come through after that. That's the big football cycle. I think we've got a mini football cycle going on with City, and we're in the exact same loop that we were in before we won the league last time. The only difference is we didn't do the business in the Champions League final this time. So I think what we're going to find is the same that happened when we last finished runners up to them. And our players all looked at each other in the summer and went, well, we know what we have to do, don't we? And Neil's referenced this on a couple of other shows. Because of the way the season is structured next year, I think you're going to get Liverpool players looking at each other in the summer and saying to Jurgen Klopp and the staff, our aim is to win every game. It's to win every game before Christmas. We need to crush Man City's souls. We want Haaland to be looking at his teammates going, what, we're not allowed to draw any games? And they're like, no, none. Because these bastards will never, ever leave you alone. Like, even when you think they're knackered and they're finished, they won't. They will keep going. And I remember vividly that season when we beat them in the league, you could almost feel it from Guardiola and City. We just can't be arsed with this. We just can't be arsed. What John was saying before is another perfect example of the mini cycle that happened last time. They won the league the year before by scrambling over the line, knackered. And even after the finish line, our players were all stood next to them saying, come on, we'll go again now. Salah's already doing it. We'll go again now. And their players are probably thinking, oh, God, I can't be doing with this again. Like, there will be lads happy to get off. I didn't realise Gundogan's going. Doesn't surprise me at all. Wouldn't surprise me if Bernardo Silva was like, I've been here before.
He wants to go.
Get off.
He wants to go, but I think they're going to try and assist, but he wants to go, yeah.
It doesn't surprise me at all. Because I can imagine him looking at the others saying, it's too much. These are too much.
It's exhausting this and no one gives a fuck.
No one gives a fuck, exactly. No one cares when we win it. Like, that's not fair.
We're killing ourselves.
We're killing ourselves to beat these. And we go out and buy, like, as you've referenced before, Joe, we literally go out and buy a lad that can run dead fast and never gives up, never stops. And they're like, oh, no, I'm not interested in this one bit. So I think overall, like, couldn't have been happier with the season going into it. I actually think the quadruple, I think a lot of us think quadruple is like a once in a lifetime thing. I think with Klopp and Guardiola, we've just changed the bar again. I think Guardiola's going now. Oh, we need to win the quadruple, don't we? And now we know we can do it. Now we know we can play every game. We go into this season with a squad knowing it's capable of getting to all of the finals. I think that's the new bar.
Okay. John, any questions for Paul?
No, it was spot on. I think, just nothing to add. I was talking for the sake of it there. That was great.
Excellent stuff. Mike, anything?
Well, I was going to ask Paul for his highlight of the season because there are so many when you think about it, beating United 5-0, beating Everton 4-1. But what's your highlight, Paul?
I mean, that's another thing, isn't it? You people forget how big those things are. And when we beat Man United at Old Trafford 5-0, and everyone's forgotten that now. And you're like, don't forget that. Never ever forget that. Like, and don't let them forget it either. And don't let Everton forget that we beat them 4-1. And at the same time, again, how privileged we are and how spoiled we are. Like, highlight, you can't beat winning cups. It's as simple as that. You can't beat winning cups. And it's fantastic. Even that, like, the people who were bemoaning, little bits of luck going against you in the other moments, the City game against Villa, the Madrid final, it's easy again to forget we won 2 penalty shootouts to win the other 2 cups, and one of them our goalie scored, our sub goalie scored. Like, we got in the Champions League by our goalie scoring a header, which is crazy, and we won a cup by our sub goalie scoring a pen. That's insane. And then I think maybe this is very harsh on Kelleher, but I just think because of who Costas is and the way he is, his winning pen just edges that for my highlight of the season.
There we are. Excellent stuff. Thank you very much indeed for listening to this and to everything that we've done all week. Do download the app. Loads more of these season reviews knocking around as well. Transfer stuff, transfer committee stuff, in your shoes games, all the stuff we enjoy doing over the course of the summer that is available for you. Download the app for that. You can use the free tokens, or alternatively, you can just subscribe through to the Anfield Wrap. Thank you very much to Tony and Ian for coming in yesterday and having a conversation with us, and for this show as well, produced by Andy Heaton with John Gibbons, with Mike Bankole, and with Paul Cope. If there's one thing to take from all of these reviews, it's that at least these three are ready to gird the loins and absolutely go for it all over again. But it's not just these three. It's Liverpool's entire squad. It's Liverpool's backroom staff. It's everyone connected to Liverpool Football Club. There's a league to be won, and that seems a mad thing to say in June, but we are where we are.